Welcome back to Resident Evil Zero. We are very nearly done within the facility and will be quickly heading to the next area. Now, while we begin finishing up here in the facility and hopefully get into the next area, we'll see where we end up when I'm done with my script, of course. I want to say thanks for coming and watching. It is very much appreciated. I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope to see you guys next time. Now, internet stuff that I want to get out of the way, of course, is if you end up enjoying this, go ahead and leave a like and a comment. And hey, if you don't enjoy this, go ahead and leave a comment as well and let me know what you would like to see. I don't mind. Doesn't mean I'll change something, but I really don't mind the criticism. Also, if you're new here and you do end up enjoying this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I put up these kind of videos every Tuesday and Thursday, and I do reviews on toys Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sunday, you can see me playing live on my Switch as I game with my buddy Leroy. Now, we have covered a very large swath of topics pertaining to Resident Evil Zero, as well as on some of the games series stuff where non-canon material is concerned. And I decided I wanted to talk a little bit more non-canon today by covering the topic of Paul W.S. Anderson's movie adaptations, or at least the very first one, maybe two. These films are a quick way for my old Resident Evil buddies and I to get into a quick but friendly argument over how good or terrible these films may be. So, let's start off with the bit I wish had come to pass. At first, Romero was actually slated to do the movies, or at least movie, until one of the directors of Capcom, as well as one of the directors for Screen Gem Studios, decided to go with the more bombastic movie style of Paul W.S. Anderson. These people felt that Romero's movies may have been a tad boring, and they said that they did not like the script that he presented. And I guess it makes sense a little bit, as 2002 was the year that they released Resident Evil Remake and Resident Evil Zero. And as I stated much earlier in my game series, Resident Evil Zero was a turning point for this game series, where they decided to go to a little more of a action-oriented game style, due to the fact that development staff were starting to feel a little slogged down by a cookie-cutter survival horror gameplay style that was going on here. So, the burgeoning dislike of the similar gameplay to all the other games that came before makes sense that they would decide to also take the movies away from the more classic Romero style into a more action-oriented style that we saw with Anderson and his Mortal Kombat movies. Now, though Anderson is instrumental in the movies, the rights to adapt the movies had actually been sold to a German company, Constantine Film, back in 1998, with Screen Gems getting distribution rights in 2001. They would then go on to hire Anderson to write, direct, and produce the first movie.
Yeah.
He was not involved with movie 2 or 3, but was involved with all the other movies that would be released for Resident Evil. The reason why he was not involved with movie 2 or 3 were due to other priorities that he had to engage in at the time. I believe it was Alien vs. Predator for one, when movie 2 came out, and I don't remember what the other movie was that caused him to have to release directorial rights, because he had to direct another movie that he was supposed to direct at the time. Anyways, now, one of the big changes brought to the films from Anderson is that the plot follows Alice, rather than the STARS team or other survivors of the Raccoon City incident. Now, the reason why I bring this up is until Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8, almost all the characters that were used in the games had been involved in either the mansion incident or in the Raccoon City incident in some way. That doesn't mean we haven't had other new characters introduced, such as Sheva from Resident Evil 5, or Billy, and Steve, and all that kind of stuff. But all those games had at least one character that was from one of the previous games. Resident Evil 1 and 2 would go on to basically host all these other games. You had Jill it was in Resident Evil 3. We have Claire and Chris in Resident Evil Code Veronica. We have Leon in Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 5 had Chris again. Resident Evil 6 had a plethora of characters. We got to see Chris, we got to see Leon, we get to see Ada, we get to see Sherry Birkin, and I believe that's it. I believe there's 4 scenarios that you get to play through in Resident Evil 6. It's not until Resident Evil 7 when we were introduced to Ethan Winters that we get our first brand new protagonist, who is not involved with the other protagonists in some co-op fashion, like they're helping each other out. Okay, so, as I said, we have now a new protagonist. We have Alice. The fact that Alice is kind of a Mary Sue character is okay, but also not okay as the films progress. We never worry about anything happening to Alice in the films, and that can sometimes be detrimental to the later films, I feel. For the first 1 or 2, though, it's kind of fun to have this Mary Sue character going through, because you wish you could be that character in a Resident Evil game, and in fact, a lot of times our power fantasies for those games is realized when we get that infinite rocket launcher and just plow through. Now, many feel, and I would somewhat agree, that Anderson did write the character of Alice specifically for his wife, who would go on to play that character in each of the films. I have mixed emotions about that. I don't know. I think it's neither good nor bad. I think it depends on the film itself and how that character can be taken. Now, these movies do have the video game characters making appearances in some of them, but they are often portrayed very differently from their video game versions of their video game selves. These movies also received very mixed or negative reviews overall, but all the same, this film series still ended up being one of the highest grossing film series based on a video game, with earnings of over 1.2 billion worldwide. I'm not sure if that still holds, but it was such for a long time. Now, let us switch from an overview of the franchise to a more focused look as we begin to look at 2002's Resident Evil movie. Let's begin with a summary of the story. It begins in a lab where some kind of mistake seems to be made, causing a vial to be broken, releasing something into the air system. This something is the T-virus. And the lab's supercomputer, the Red Queen, kills all the living entities in the facility while also locking it down in various ways, such as flooding some of the rooms, in order to prevent this virus from escaping the facility. She also releases a nerve gas as well, which affects some of the characters that we run across in the film, one of them being introduced next. We get cut to a mansion where we find Alice waking up in the shower. Side note, Resident Evil movies generally show Alice in some form of undress or nudity, kind of as a bragging right of, hey, check out my hot wife from Anderson, and it's kind of silly. But anyways, this is that scene where we get to see Alice wrapped up in a shower curtain, basically. Anyways, she wakes up in the shower, suffering from amnesia. We get a brief overview of her possible life, a possible marriage, and then she is attacked by somebody who is another amnesiac. And while that's occurring, a security team breaks into the mansion, arresting the guy who's attacking her. And they reveal that they are there to go inspect the lab. Hey, guess what? The mansion is a secret entrance to the lab. They get on some kind of train system. They find another amnesiac hidden on the train as they begin their descent to the lab. In order to open up the rooms, they do need to disable and restart the Red Queen. This ends up leading them to entering a hallway and leading to one of the cooler scenes in this whole movie. A laser grid action sequence that does cause the death of some of the characters. They, of course, eventually enter the Red Queen's room, resetting her and allowing further access to the lab. Now, the disabling of the Red Queen, besides allowing the group access, has also freed the infected staff, allowing the creatures access to now what is fresh meat. We have some pretty cool action sequences and scenes that follow as they begin exploring the lab. We have one that sticks out in my memory, where Alice goes into a room and is attacked by zombified dogs and proceeds to kick dog ass. And it was a really cool sequence. Some of the action scenes do see us having some of these mercenaries that have survived up to this point being bitten and infected by the zombies within the facility. They continue on, and more memories begin to surface with the amnesiacs, and we discover that Alice is actually some kind of security agent for Umbrella, who owns the lab. But her true motives seem to be the fact that she was trying to release information about what Umbrella was experimenting on within the lab in order to shut Umbrella down. We discover that one of the other amnesiacs is the brother to Alice's inside source in the lab. And the last amnesiac is actually a thief trying to steal the T-virus. And it was he who caused the virus to be released within the lab, causing this outbreak. Now, alongside the virus, we do discover that there was a cure developed. And so the group decides to go get the cure in order to save the infected security agent that is within their team. Now, the thief had been bitten at some point, and so double-crosses them and steals the cure in order to save himself. The Red Queen, though, has released a liquor in order to prevent the virus from reaching topside. The liquor does attack the thief, and Alice and crew do manage to retrieve the cure once again. They use it on the infected mercenary, and while they are escaping in a train, the liquor boards the train, and we have another kind of fun action sequence where we discover that it was too late for the mercenary who had been bitten, and she turns during their fight with the liquor. Now, that actually leaves us with 3 survivors, not counting the one who had turned. The 3 survivors now must face the turned mercenary and a mutated liquor, who proceeds to scratch one of the two survivors who isn't Alice, and kills the third. They of course put down the turned mercenary and escape from the liquor, escaping the lab. They re-reach the mansion, and as they reach the mansion, a new security team breaks into the mansion, taking Alice into custody and noticing that the scratches that the other survivor has incurred due to the liquor are beginning to show signs of mutation, strapping him to a gurney and saying that it is time to put him into the Nemesis program. Alice is knocked out, and while she is being knocked out, she does hear this team talking about going back into the lab and investigating the incident. She wakes up at some point later. It is not stated how long she's been out, but she does wake up, as I said, sometime later in a hospital room, strapped to a table. She escapes her bonds, escapes the hospital, and comes out onto a desolated and abandoned street. We do discover that this is Raccoon City, and something has occurred at some point, and we don't know where the people are. And it's awfully quiet. She proceeds down the street, finds an abandoned police cruiser with a star symbol on the hood, takes the shotgun within, and then continues her march down Raccoon City's empty streets. And this is where the movie ends. Now, my feelings on this film are a little mixed, as upon rewatching it, I still enjoyed it. It isn't a bad zombie action movie. Now, I wouldn't call it a horror movie. And the reason why my feelings are mixed a little bit is I wouldn't have minded a horror version of a Resident Evil film. Now, in some ways though, this really isn't a bad adaptation and reimagining of the source material. Now, it doesn't mean I don't wish it hadn't been a little closer to the source material of the first few games, and that it had been a bit more spooky and claustrophobic, right? I would have loved to have seen Romero's take on the film finished. Now, if you are interested, you can actually find his script for his version of the film online. I've seen people who are reading it and all that kind of stuff, so you can find what his ideas would have been. Anyways, this Anderson film has merit to it, at least this first one especially. Now, as the series of films does progress, the merit can easily be argued to have been lost. He has a habit of kind of forgetting what happened in the other films and just doing what he wants instead of continuing a much more cohesive storyline, unfortunately. With, in my opinion, the first and second films that he did being the two best out of the series. Now, the source entry, as I said, isn't a bad entry. In fact, it's very much enjoyable in my opinion. As long as you don't take too many prejudices based on your enjoyment of the video games into it. I really enjoyed the action in this movie. The zombies looked pretty decent, and the CGI was actually pretty okay. Still, in my opinion. I prefer more practical effects over CGI, but, you know, when CGI is done well, even if it looks kind of as years go on and CGI gets better, you can still enjoy what they did, and that's kind of how I feel about the CGI in this film. The two action sequences that always stick in my head still really, got to me. It still really drew me in. The laser grenade sequence and the dog ass kicking scene. I still love those sequences a lot. You know, I really did enjoy the effects of this film overall. And I really do find that in my subsequent watching of it, I've seen this movie now 4 times, I think, overall. I saw it in theaters, and then I've watched it 3 times over the years on DVD. And I still end up enjoying it. I still get drawn in and am able to suspend my disbelief and all that kind of stuff and just enjoy a good schlocky action movie. You know, the characters are predictable, and so is the storyline overall, but I still enjoy how the characters play out, even through their predictability. So, overall, I think this is a movie that you should, if you have the chance, to sit down, relax, and check out. You should check it out. You know, maybe B-style action horror movies aren't really your thing. If so, I'm sorry, this is not for you. But if you're okay with those kind of films, sit down and watch this one. I think you'll end up enjoying it. If you haven't seen it before and you just don't want to watch it because, you know, it's an Anderson film. And it's a video game Anderson film. And, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, but this one and the second film, I think you might enjoy. I'm going to probably talk about the second film in our next review, as those are the 2 that I've watched. I haven't really watched the next 4 because I don't enjoy them as much. And I think the next 4 really switch from what these movies started off as to much more of a look at my hot wife, look how super awesome she is, she kills everything kind of thing. Anyways, guys, overall, Resident Evil film from 2002 is fun, it's stupid, but I think it's worth a sit down and watch with some pizza and a soda or something like that, especially if you can sit down and watch it with a group of friends and kind of joke around during it. That I think is a lot of fun to do. Anyways, before I start rambling, I want to say again, thank you very much for being here. I hope you guys had a good time. We'll see you next time. And until then, farewell and bye.